On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story, presented by Austin Film Festival, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers and directors. This week's On Story, Mother and Child and Last Days in the Desert director, Rodrigo Garcia.
Listen, anything written with any honesty is about you. I mean, there's just no way to hide behind writing. There is just no way, unless you're really writing stuff for hire shamelessly, and even then. But if you write something that you like, that means something to you, you're there. There's just nowhere to hide.
In this episode, Rodrigo Garcia discusses his affinity for bringing familial relationships to the big screen.
I worked as a camera operator on studio movies at the same time that I was working on independent movies as a director of photography. But as a camera operator, you're often... you have a lot of downtime while the DP is lighting. Sure, you're helping to set up a shot, but you have a lot more time, and you're very close to the directors and the actors physically, and you can hear what they talk about and what the direction the director gives. So, I started getting just interested in that, and honestly, in a very arrogant way, which directors share, I started getting this little voice in my head saying, I could have written that. Oh, I could have done that better. You need to have that, a certain dose of narcissism to say, give me a few $1 million, I'll make you a pretty movie. But I did, that started to happen. I started to get more interested in the scene and how it was staged, what the director and actors were doing. So I did start to get this idea that I could direct something, but I did challenge myself in the sense that I said, I'm not going to try to direct anything unless I can write it, because writing it, I think, will give me more clarity with what I want to do. And also, I didn't want to be yet another person, director, a photographer, a cinematographer, who was looking for a script to direct. I grew up watching a lot of movies that were, what were eventually called auteur movies. So the ambition came hand in hand to be mostly a director of stuff that I'd written myself. So then for a few years, I tried to write a script, and eventually I wrote a script called Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her, which was produced. And then my life was ruined, because now I think about writing and directing 24/7. There's no days off. So although I hadn't written much, I grew up in an environment where I thought I understood what the, what the process, the preoccupations, what the problems, what the hurdles are of trying to hash out a story. I was never writing for writing's sake. I was never thinking of being a professional screenwriter or a screenwriter for hire. So the preoccupation, or what you're calling the nervousness, was all about the overall product. It was not about the screenplay as an end in itself. I mean, I must say honestly, when the first script that I wrote, Things You Can Tell, I always saw it as 5 stories set in Los Angeles, which was a city that when you first arrive seems extremely lush and welcoming. The weather and it, it's sunny, and the beach, and it's very lush, and Hollywood, and it's all very promising. But after you spend some time there, you realize, like all big cities, it's very lonely. Plus, LA has the extra element that it's so spread out, and there's so many people sitting alone in their cars. It makes for even extra loneliness. So I wanted to tell 4 or 5 stories of these people who live these disconnected lives in LA. And honestly, initially I thought I would write men and women, but I wrote the first couple of women, and then when I started to write the guys, they just were not as good. I wasn't that interested. The characters were not as for me as multifaceted, as complicated. They were all, I think, looking back, sort of virtuous or horrible versions of myself, but they weren't each a particular person. So I think, as is often the case, I suppose, in any profession, or certainly in creative professions, I think you exercise your strongest muscles when you start. And I immediately saw that the female characters were what I thought more, I mean, better or worse, they were more interesting to me. So I thought, well, you know, I'm not really talking about women. I'm talking about this city with these disconnected, lonely lives. And I thought, well, I'll do it with women.
Just tell me about this year.
Well, you seem to be very concerned with finding a man. Someone who you can depend on, somebody who you can share your life with. And there is a man who will be interested in you.
The man you mentioned before? The one at work?
No, this is somebody you've never met.
And then, you know, I kept going. I mean, I could write them better than the men. And the why of it, you know, I don't know. I'm interested. You know, I like women and I'm interested in them. So they became my main tool. And, you know, I read the script with preoccupation because I wanted to work with her, but I really want to, you know, connect to the script. You know, it's very hard to do a script as a favor. And I did connect to it. I mean, I thought the character of Nobbs was absolutely unique. You know, a person who, as a young woman, in order to make her way, because she had, you know, we're talking about 19th century Ireland. If a woman had no job, income, family, husband, you know, the options were very limited. The poorhouse, prostitution, I mean, just very limited. So it was not unheard of for young women who could pass as boys to work as waiters or you know, in construction, day laborers.
Doctor. Your morning cuppa, sir.
Suffering God, Albert. What was I drinking last night?
And this was a very interesting story of a girl who, because she was a girl when it happened to her, she'd also been sexually assaulted, so she was, you know, she was definitely suffering, I would say, from, you know, there's an argument to be made that Nobbs suffered from post-traumatic, you know, stress syndrome. But anyway, when she was a teenager, she could pass as a waiter, as a boy, so worked as a waiter, and you know, and worked her way up to become the butler, the head butler at a hotel. And I thought it was very interesting, just her isolation. And she was, in fact, someone who, you know, a lot of my stuff is based on that other person that you're tied to. And I think it was interesting that Albert had no one. She didn't even have herself. I think when the movie starts, she no longer knows she's Nobbs. That's all she is. It's not male, female. It's just Nobbs the butler, which I thought was fascinating. Ewan McGregor plays two roles. He plays Yeshua, as he is called in the movie, and he also plays a demon that is there taunting him and tormenting him.
That shooting star last night, you enjoyed that. It was a bore, liar. I am a liar, that is the truth. I've seen every shooting star since the first one. Every flash of lightning. I've heard the last gasp of each thing that ever lived. Nothing's interesting anymore. Nothing surprises you. Not a thing.
There's an episode in the Gospels where Jesus meditates for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. And what I did, I had this idea that on his way back to become, to his ministry, to what we know as, you know, the story of Jesus, that he spends 3 days and 3 nights with a family that lives in the desert and gets caught up in the drama between a father and son who live in the desert.
I'm not going down there.
Do not disobey me. You will regret it.
He knows I'm scared to death of heights. What kind of father asked me to do this?
Please let him go. Let him go. I can go down. I'll do it.
I'll do it.
You know, I'm not a religious person, but this idea came to me, and I think it came to me because it was mostly about fathers and sons. And so I approached it in a literary way. I wasn't trying to tell a religious story. I took the figure of Jesus with everything that we know about him. We know what the origin is, and we know what the outcome is. And it was intriguing to me to see him being someone who has his own father issues, for lack of a better expression. Meaning he is someone who, you know, arguably his father has already written his destiny for him. And I thought it'd be interesting to see him have to work his way through that as a human being. You know, I was only dealing with the human side of Jesus, not the divine side. I couldn't know how to even approach the divine side. So it is really a psychodrama of this man with a powerful father having to be an intermediary between a father and a young son who live in the desert. So yes, I mean, obviously a very, a fine example of the knuckleheadedness of writer-directors who say, I must do this. The world needs this. It's not good to write with such clarity on what your themes are or what your message is, and I don't think there should even be a message. I came to understand that they were usually about the, relationships where people can't live with or without each other. You know, a man whose father died before he was born, the day before he was born, or when he was, although they've never met, that relationship can be a super strong, you can still be trying to live up to what your mother wanted you to be, although you never met her. Someone who at 14 had become pregnant in the 70s and had been forced to give her baby up for adoption. She had not chosen it herself, and even if she had, the choices of a 14-year-old on such a matter are questionable because it's too big. But she had not, I read a lot about women to whom this had happened. They were girls, they were forced to give up their children for adoption. And then they lived their entire life sort of in the shadow, not everyone, but it was not uncommon to live their entire life in the shadow of this missing person. So joined at the hip to someone that you never knew, you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're called, you don't know if they know about you, if they want to meet you, if they're looking for you, if you were to find them, would they want to, or would they want to spit in your face? So this idea that even though that other person is not there, they're like a ghost in your life.
If you don't want to communicate with me, I will also understand and accept it. If we were to meet, I think we should look forward, not back, and build something new. I was born November 7th, 1973.
So that's where it came from. Two women obsessed with each other, both the woman who gave up the baby and the baby who's now a grown woman, who resents having been given up. And this idea that they live joined at the hip and they don't even know who they are, where they are, or if they are alive, or regarding the other person. So that feeling of being, always joined at the hip to other human beings is, I think that's a strong one. That's, siblings, fathers and daughters, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, and any combination. Although I suppose, just spouses and parents and children, that, we will be talking about that one for a while.
You've been watching a conversation with Rodrigo Garcia on Story. Next up, filmmaker Faraday Okoro and his short film, Blitz.
My name is Faraday Okoro, and my film is Blitz. I couldn't quite come up with the idea initially until one day I got home and I just randomly started playing chess with a friend, and then boom, the film hit me. When I came up with the concept of a father and son who play chess in the park, I guess automatically the idea of family time, or at least, what does it mean to spend time with another person? How do I make it cinematic? Unlike, say, I guess basketball or football, chess is something that's, more of like a mind game. It happens internally. So I had to really figure out, what in chess is cinematic. That was the hardest part about translating it. I'm most proud of two things. The first is the acting. My cast, they were able to, translate what was on page to the screen quite successfully, in my opinion. And also my crew. We had 2 days to shoot the film. All of it took place outside, and it was all exterior. So we relied heavily on like the sun. And because of that, we only had a short amount of time in the day to shoot. And, my crew knocked it out the park. Next up is Blitz. Enjoy.
Well, you can't do that. You know the rules. Checkmate.
I knew that was gonna happen. How about we just play again as if I had taken the knight?
You want to try it? Yeah. All right. Check. 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 Checkmate.
Oh.
Oh, listen, don't beat yourself up about it. You're really getting a lot better.
Yeah, right.
No, you are. 6 months ago, I would have beaten you in 6 moves. Set him up. This playground is becoming very popular. You ready?
Ted?
Yeah.
Let's play 3-minute games after this.
Well, you got someplace to go?
No, I want to play basketball with Andy and Mark.
Who?
Andy and Mark.
Those knuckleheads?
Ted, they're my friends.
Check.
So can we?
Move your king. It's in check.
You didn't answer my question.
I just want to move there.
But I touched it.
I'm giving you another pass. No. Jacob, use your head. Look, this is the Sicilian defense we're talking about here, and you know it. We did it last week.
I know. We do it every week. I want to do something else.
Well, what do you want to do? The French defense?
You know what I fucking mean.
Hey, watch the language, okay? Is your mother putting you up to this?
No. You gotta be kidding me.
Besides, look at those guys. They're not even playing basketball.
I don't care.
They're picking each other's fleas.
Better than sitting around.
All right, look. Let's start this again, okay? This is important to me, okay? I don't see you during the week. This is our time together, and it's important to me. So let's just play chess, all right?
I don't know why you have to make such a big deal out of
Look,
this.
I don't want to argue about this. I just want to play chess. All right, start. Move. Okay, look. I'll make a deal with you. Let's play a 3-minute game. If you win, you can go hang out with your friends. If I win, we continue to play. Does that make sense to you?
No.
Well, why not?
Because I can't beat you?
You beat me all the time.
You let me win.
Jesus Christ, I'm trying to find a middle ground here. Give me a break.
You're trying to hustle me.
I'm not trying to hustle you. Let's play by your terms.
Any way I want to play.
That's right.
Okay. You got 1 minute.
How much time do you have?
3? That's what you said.
You want me to play a handicap? Fine. 1 minute. Start the clock.
Check.
Ha! Attack the queen. Check. It's the rook. I got 42 seconds left. Check. Take the knight. Fork the bishops.
No! What are you doing? You know the rules.
Fine.
Checkmate.
Hand me the bag, would you?
Sure thing. Let's go best 2 out of 3.
Okay. If you want to. You know you don't stand a chance.
Oh, yeah, right. Check.
On Story is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's On Story project, including the On Story PBS series, now streaming online, the On Story radio program and podcast in collaboration with Public Radio International, and the On Story book series available on Amazon. To find out more about On Story and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.